So today we're going to discuss about a user management. So whenever you sign up to the org, you self as a user in your org. Right? So for example, when we creating this org, we signed up, right? So when you sign up, what happened? There will be one user created for ourselves. That means whatever the name I gave, email, it is all the information. There will be one default user get created with the system administrator profile. Okay, and I don't have control to change any of the users. So Yashwant is one of the users who signed up. So he will be a system administrator, and there will be some of the fields it's being populated like name, alias name, email, username, nickname, title, everything is being populated. So this is based on the form that we created when using the developer.salesforce.com. For individual also it will be same. There will be a, whatever the information you give, based on that information, there will be default user for you as well. But so after I sign up, I want to add some other users in my system, like in your org. So whatever it is, this is the Salesforce Info Solutions 2. This is my Salesforce instance, a developer instance that I created. So I cannot work alone, right? Even if you take a real world scenario also, you'll be having your team and your client and your users, sales reps. Everyone you have to provide access for your team and your client on your phone. And they cannot do a self-registration alone. We have to manage them. So when clients say, okay, give access to these 10 users, and they'll give us some emails and names of them, and they'll ask you to create. You have to create these users in a Salesforce. Okay, so for that, we have to follow simple navigation. Once you log in, go to this setup icon and click on a setup, and in the left side panel, in quick find, search for users. After getting users, click on the user option. There are user options. You will be seeing all the list of the users available in the system, and you can see what is the profile, whether they are active or not, what is the role assigned to them, what's the username given to them, what's the alias name, what's the full name of them. And you have some controls over here like actions, and there are some basic ground rules. Okay, once you create the user, you cannot delete them. Okay, once the user is created, they will be lifelong there in the system. There is no option to delete any user. Okay, remember the delete word. There is a no delete option for users. Okay, so you said like whenever we want, we can stop giving access, and we no need to pay to the Salesforce license and all. So basically, the user, when you want to create a user, you need a license, the Salesforce license, for which you're going to pay to the Salesforce on a monthly basis. Per license per month, you're going to pay the dollar amount. So when you're going to pay it, first thing was you need to buy license from a Salesforce, and then for the license you bought, for the licenses you can create the users. Suppose if you bought 5 licenses, so you can create a 5 users in your system. Okay. So again, you thought like, no, now after 3 months or 1 month or a year, what you decided? So I don't no longer needed a 5 licenses. I need only 2. So I'll ask Salesforce to remove. Like I will going to pay only for 2 licenses. So remove 3 licenses. So how it possible? Already you are using the 5 users. So you don't have option to delete. Then how you can stop? That we're going to discuss next. Okay, but there's another option without deleting. Okay, So keep that a question in mind. How to add a new users now. You can see it's a simple navigation. There's a new user option over here and reset password and add multiple users. So what could be the option for you? There are two options available. One is a new user and a add multiple users. Both options will be available to add a new users. Okay, so reset password also is simple for existing users if they are looking for resetting their password. They forgotten something. They not remember the password. Then what you can do? You can check the users and apply a reset password so that they will get an email notification with the reset password link. That is for a reset password. Okay, let's create a new user. There's some things you need to fill and some things are mandatory. So these are like looks like this left side panel values are like straightforward. It's mostly about personal information. What is his name, alias name, email, username, and nickname, and all. So first name, last name is a mandatory. So I would say Hakeem, alias, email. Number one. At gmail.com. I'm just giving my Gmail. And here, Marcia. So I can give the username as I wish. Okay. There is no need to be a restriction. Like we have to give like this. Okay. There is no restriction. And then it's in the form of an email. That should be fine. But email has to be a valid email. But if you give you do the email, some junk mail also it will accept. The thing was, it will send a verification link to that email. Once you verify, then only this user will get activated. Okay. So if you give a junk mail in the right format, that will not stop you creating a that will not stop you creating from a user. It will create a user, but you will not get access. That's all. Even though I create a user, until unless you verify from your email, then only you will receive an access. Okay. Hmm. Okay. That's the key. Okay. So I have some personal email username and login set. Now come to right side. There are some required. So whatever you see this red symbol or saying this is all a required information. So role, even though it's required, there's option to non-specified role also you can assign. It means that you're not assigning a role, basically it's a not a required one. Even though it's a required one, you can choose a non-specified one and create a user. And user licenses. This is what actually you're going to pay a dollar value to Salesforce and get licenses from Salesforce. So here I have these many licenses. So the next question is how do I know what are licenses available for my art? How many being used and how many are remaining? How can I check? So whatever the available licenses, only those will be displayed over here, and you can check the count by using the following navigation. How you can check was go to a setup setup icon and go to setup and check for a company information. Company information. In company information, you will be having the information about your company. That is, this is also used by when you do a sign up. At the same time only this information also captured. At any point of time, if you want to change the information like time zones or anything, you can change over in a company information. Okay, here you can change those default time zones, currency, what is your currency, and all you can change over here, like enable data transactions or like enable multiple currencies. We have multiple options on a company information side where you can control some of the features like time zone, default language, default locally, and these are all the options we have available on a company information. Along with this, we have a license information, user licenses. So if you go to user licenses, these are all the different licenses that are available in your R. The Salesforce license is what is a costly license, and you pay for Salesforce. And most of the remaining licenses are Salesforce will provide us. Okay, and if you compare the license cost of other licenses compared to a Salesforce license, they might be getting at a lower cost compared to a Salesforce. Why? Because Salesforce is a full license. So you can have whatever feature that Salesforce provide, you will get all the features for Salesforce license. But for other license, they are like a limited features. For example, you have 100 features. So you'll get 100 features in the Salesforce license. For example, if you take a external apps login, so you'll get only access to the external apps that may be around 10% of your features. So the cost will be also literally less. And there will be a Salesforce platform. You might be getting a 50% of access to the Salesforce features. Then the cost will be different. But you don't need to worry about all this. What is the cost? What is the license and all. But just understand the Salesforce is a fullest license that we pay for the taken edition. But other licenses are like having a limited features. The cost also compared to a Salesforce license, it is a less. That's what all you have to remember. And just can we will be going to a list of user licenses and their features and how we can use this. Okay, this is all for knowledgeable purpose. So here, Salesforce license. I have total 2 Salesforce license. Out of that, I used one, and there's one license available. So I'm going to create a user here, so I can use a Salesforce license, or I can use a Salesforce platform where I have a 3 licenses available and none of being used. Okay, let me use a Salesforce platform license, and there's a profile. If you see what are the license I selected, the profile also being correspond to the license you select. For example, if I select a work.com only, so you will have only one profile related to work.com. For example, if I take a post.com free, then you have corresponding profile only. But if I pick a Salesforce, which is a full license, so the profiles will be which are all you can give. So it's kind of a next level of filter basically. So how it works is a Salesforce is an ecosystem where you have a different business, different clouds are available. Out of that, we approach Salesforce and say, okay, my company need a only sales and service cloud access. Okay, tell me, and my company size is a 25 members or a 250 members or 1,000 members. We'll go with your approach and Salesforce will suggest you what is the edition suitable for you, what are the clouds they are offering, and if you purchase these many licenses, what will be the cost, and these are all what they're going to share with you. Okay, so even the Salesforce is a big ecosystem, they will provide an edition. So edition is nothing but the set of features that Salesforce is going to offer in your Salesforce instance. So when you sign up, right, you have or. Similarly, actually when you're buying for a client or then they'll predefine a set of features that they're going to sell to you. That is what the feature that will come along with your edition. There are different types of edition that we'll discuss. I will not deviate from the topic. The edition. So on top of edition, you have a license that you purchase from Salesforce, which will again filter these features into a next level of filtering of these features. So Salesforce is having a full features of your edition, and next different licenses will have a different set of licenses. Based on these licenses, your features is going to again shrink down. And so once you have license selected, on top of a license being already filtered, on those filtered lists, you have a file that you're going to apply for the users. Again, you can reduce or shrink down those features. So this is going up a pipeline which narrowing your features. So basically, it's not like even though I'm paying more, I'm getting less. It's not like that. So if you want, you can apply same features being transferred to your users. But as your as a your company structure and model, not all users are being equal. Maybe some companies may have all are having equal rules, but most of the scenarios there will not be equal rules. There will be a hierarchy, and there will be a provided access based on their role and responsibilities. That's why, based on each individual, there will be a separate set of access only will provide them. How we're going to control it by using all this pipeline. So first we have edition, what you need for your org that you'll ask for Salesforce and get it. So there will be different types of editions. So you need to choose one. So once you have an edition, on top of the edition, the user license will control what features you're going to give for user. On top of a license, you'll be having a profile where you'll be having control to what features need to be given for a user. Okay, this is how the access will be like reduced or controlled for an user, for example. So here I'm going to apply a platform license, and I have applied a profile, and this is going to be active user. And there are some of the features that you're going to control on a user. Okay, marketing user, offline user, knowledge, flow, service cloud, site.com. These are all access the features that we control on a user record. Okay, so you see all the checkbox. If you want to give this access, then only you go and check these boxes. If you check the box means you enable that feature for this user. So after that, you have all these features. Whatever you want, you can just enable those features. And again, personal information like phone extension and all. Followed by your mailing address, single sign-on address. I'm just give you like single sign-on. What is the single sign-on? So usually, if you like when you're using a developer console and all, usually how you log in, you open your login.salesforce.com and provide your username and password and login. That's it. But most of the companies, when you're working in a company, how they want is they want to avoid multiple logins. They use only one login, and they want to use all other platforms or systems or tools, whatever there. They want to use the same username and password across all the apps. Okay. For example, their official communication channel is Outlook, for example. They will be having one username and password for their Outlook. And they want to use the same username and password for the Salesforce as well. Then in that case, what they have to use a single sign-on. Single sign-on what give a capability to the user system. By authenticating the external apps. By authenticating the external apps, you can authenticate Salesforce as well. There will be a federation ID what will provide in a Salesforce that IT people will provide you the federation ID. So that whenever you log into your Outlook and open a Salesforce, it will automatically log into a Salesforce without using any username and password. There are different types of single sign-on. In some types, you will use the same username and password of your Outlook, one option. And second option, there will be a apps like what they call it as. Um, if you are already working in a company,
Tools like Jira or any other Git.
not Jira actually. So if you know
Okay.
Okta Verify and all, so there will be
Okay.
Okta tools. They will be having
For authentication. Okay.
the authentication. So they will be having all apps over there. Outlook, Teams, or like if they're having any built in-house applications or like Salesforce, any plan or any cloud system. All the apps will be just given like icons once you log into Okta. Just clicking on it itself, it will be given access to that app. So in one platform giving access to the all tools. Similarly, there are equivalent apps or like equivalent systems for authentication like Okta. So those will be also integrated with Salesforce to provide an access without using any username and password. And what is his local settings like time zone, language, local, everything you can set up here. And there's like manager and delegated approver. Remember this to delegated approver and manager. So when the time comes, I'll explain this delegated approver and manager when actually used. Basically, they are like for example, we're adding a user in Salesforce to whom this user is going to report. That is a manager, another user in a Salesforce. Delegated approver. If he is having any request, then who will be approver for this user? I would say default approver and default manager. Those also you can set up in your user. So there's a checkbox here. Generate new password to notify the user. If you check this checkbox, then only you will be notified. Otherwise, if you uncheck this box, even though you create a new user, the user will not know that there is a user in a Salesforce being created for that user. They will never know. Only if you check this box, then only the user will receive a notification. Okay, let's create a user. Just hit save. And now I have created the user. Now, what is my expectation? I need to go to my email and check whether I have received any email or not. So let me check. So in updates you can see here we have a verify account email being received. So in the verify email account, you can just I'm just copying the link. Why? Because I'm using the Chrome, which is already being logged in. So if I log in there again, so it will not work actually for me. That's why I'm going to use a different browser to log in. Okay, let's log in. So once I click on the link, you don't need to do all this. You can just click on a verify account, automatically this page will open. So what it is asking, it's asking to change your password. If you remember, when you sign up also, it has been same process. Here also it's the same process. Just you have to use the same. Okay, it's done. I'm in. So this is what I have. I can look at my system. Okay, you can add all this like your profile setting, adding an image, everything you can control as you wish, like username, like my username, your name, everything that you can do it over here. So here, if I want to explain one more point here, brand access within here. So if you can provide an login option for a company administrators and the sales. Before explaining, let me share you the username and password for this one. So what we are doing, so daily we are logging in and explaining you all this setup from this org, right? So you don't have access as of today. So what I'm doing is, today I'm going to share you the login for what are the login that I have created just now. I'm going to share the password and username for this. So what you can do, you can just log in and check. Do not alter anything. So if you have questions like how we did in our org at any point of time, if you have a question related to that, just log in and check how we have set up any question. Just follow the navigation and follow that. Okay, that's it. So here, so are you able to see my screen or not? Yes.
Not yet, Bala.
Okay. So just now I shared the username and password in the group. Use that to log in and check the access and all. Now here, talking about a grant account login access. Usually when we have to use this, for suppose you are a user, so you use your username and password to log in. For example, you have an issue and you want a system administrator to be looked into, or like a Salesforce support. Salesforce support is the support what we receive from a Salesforce. If there is some issue, okay, if I go somewhere, the features are missing, I won't be able to save features, and some unexpected errors are coming. So then what will do? We raise a case to a Salesforce, and Salesforce will look into it. So you have your username and password, and you cannot share your username and password. And how does the admins or a Salesforce support team will look into it without sharing a username and password? This is an option where grant login access, where you can provide them granting the access so directly they can able to log into your org and your user. And there is a time period till what time you want to allow them to log in from allowing the grant account login access. When you set this one, so what will happen? So this is what the new team that I created. So if I go back to the our login, so here I have created a user here, right, for you guys. So here, when you have this what called when you have this a user, so here what we have edit, sharing, reset password and freeze. So once I have granted access over there, what we can see here called a login button as well. So using this login button, you can impersonate. You can impersonate as this user and check what actually the issue is happening. To impersonate as this user, the user has to grant access login, grant account login, then only you will be able to log in as this user. There's other option for administrator to even though the users are allowing it or not allowing, also you can log in as other users. That feature also there, but you have to use the grant. if you don't have that setup. Okay. So now the user is being created and they have logged in. I share username and password. So anytime we can log in and check. So you can see here what are options available. Login history. Whenever the user logged in, what is the IP address, in which country they are logged in, and what are URL they being used, and which what type of a login, so browser login or any plugin or any external apps. Everything that you can check here in the login history of the user. Now, what's next? So what we can control, how we can restrict these users, why we need to restrict. So I want to provide some security. I want to restrict the users to logging in on some criteria of my choice. Like basically how I can stop at any point of time the users have been given access to the Salesforce. First, if you say simply, so sorry, I cannot delete the user in Salesforce. So how can I stop the users from using the Salesforce? One is freeze the user. So the user cannot do anything in Salesforce. They cannot log in. They log in, just they'll get freeze. They don't do anything in Salesforce. Okay, so the authentication being fail every time. When you do a freeze, when you do a freeze, you have option to unfreeze. So whenever you want, you can just do unfreeze, but the user will not get any notifications. But just they lost the access. That's it. That's a freeze and unfreeze. Another option we have is an active flag. So you have this active flag. If you remove this active flag and just save it, then all the same thing. The user will not do anything. They lose access to the Salesforce. They will be given right username and right password also. They will be not able to log into a Salesforce. Okay. So why we have two options? We have freeze and we have a inactive. What's the difference? The freeze is stop the user from logging in, but it will not release the license back to the org. But active and inactive will help you releasing the license back to the org so that you can use that license for other users, or you'll be asked Salesforce to not to pay for that users. Why? Because you're not using that license anymore. So you can ask them to not to pay to the Salesforce. That's what's the difference between inactive and the freeze. Will not release back the license to the org, but inactive will release the license back to the org. Okay, that is only the difference. And for inactive or activate, you will not receive any notification. For freezing and freezing also, you will not receive any notifications to the user. Without knowledge of the user, it will happen. Okay, so that is how we'll stop the user from logging into the Salesforce. It's like a no condition. There will be no condition applied. Just you can stop the user from logging in unconditionally. Okay, let's take a short break and continue with other topics in the user management. Okay, ask me if you have any questions before taking a break. You don't have any questions? We have seen how to create an user and how to stop the user from. Now, what are other ways of restricting the user? Okay, if you but before moving forward, we need to cover a profile. What actually the profile is. So we have whenever we're creating a user, we have seen that whenever we select a license, then there will be a list of profiles that are showing up. based on the license that you're being selected. So if you directly want to see what all the profiles are available from the setup icon, you need to click on setup and search for the profiles. You will be having a navigation called the under users administration users. You have option for the profiles. If you go to profiles, there are some standard profiles. So before explaining, just generalize. The thing in Salesforce has been divided into a standard and a custom. Standard means what are all the things that are provided by Salesforce by default. By default, the custom is something that we create in a Salesforce. So we have this standard things. As you can see, these are all the profiles. We have a total 38 profiles given by Salesforce by default. Any of the standard things we cannot delete. So you don't have a delete option. Either you can clone or edit. So clone means it will create a copy of it and you will give a different name to it, and that is called a custom profile. So I'm just sorting with this custom. Okay. Whenever you have this custom, you have an option called a delete option also. But only the custom profiles, those are available for deleting the profiles. Okay. So first, what is actually the profile is? Profile is the list of permissions that will give to any user that's being created in Salesforce. So profile is a mandatory thing. If you want to create a user in Salesforce, you have to give a profile. The profile is nothing but the permission that we give to the user. Okay. Okay. What permissions we control in a profile? Let's create a new profile and see. So you cannot create any profile from scratch. So it has to be cloned from any of the existing profile. So I'm taking a system administrator and I will say my name of my profile is a system admin, I would say custom. This is what my profile name I'm going to create for this new profile, and it's being cloned from a system administrator profile. And click on save. And the user license required is Salesforce license. Okay, these are sorry. This is how it's the profile. So we have a list of things that we can control on a profile. So what are and high level we'll see. One is a page layouts. Already we discussed about page layouts. So we can assign page layout to a profile for the record type. If you don't have a record type, just for each profile you can have an option to assign a page layout. If you have a record type, then it's going to be a combination of a page layout, record type, sorry, profile and record type, which page layout you want to assign. You have option to assign a page layout. So that you can see in one place what all different objects and what page layout you've been assigned for this profile. You can see here in one place about the page layout assignments, and next to the page layouts you have a custom object layouts also same field level security. So you might have observed whenever we're creating a new field, the last before screen, that means around third screen for most of the fields, you will see a field level security. What is the access level for the profiles? So you'll be having all the list of profiles, editable or read only. You have two check boxes. If you give only visible, it will be both read and edit access. If you check read only, this visible also check and read only will also check, so that the access will be only read only for the users. So that access you can check over in the field level security section. So you can go to the object and see what are all the different fields you have on the account and what is the different levels of your security. And you can edit those and you can change whatever the option you want. And some of them are having a don't have control to check or uncheck these boxes. Why? Because they are like required fields. If you make the field as required and if you're trying to give a read-only access, does it make any sense? No, right? If you give a required field means every user, every profile should have access to that profile as a editable. Then only the user can give a value. That's why Salesforce will not allow you to restrict those fields value. Those fields access to a read only. By default, it will be given to all profiles as a read and write access. That's why, for example, if there are any read only fields, you don't have option to choose them. For example, Einstein account type. No, actually, if you look at any of the formula fields you have, they are like a read only fields. So you will be having only read access. You cannot edit them. So edit them. So edit option will be disabled for this. So we have student. Okay, back to profile. Sorry. So in field level security, if you go to this somewhere where we have created formulas and all, so we have an institute. I'm just opening up this one. In institute, you can see I'm trying to edit. So you have auto number. Auto number, see, there is a no edit access. You cannot give edit, right? Because they are read only fields. On the read only fields, you cannot give a edit access. Why? Because default nobody else can edit this field values. That's why it's disabled. Okay. So that's why some of the options are disabled. Once you cannot do it. And so basically in profile, we can control the page level assignments, so page layout assignments, field level security for different objects, standard and custom objects, and a custom app settings. So once you create an app, what is the access for you? Like whether you are able to having a visible to the apps that you see here, and what are the default apps? What mean by default app? Default app means whenever you log into a Salesforce, by default you open up with that app. That's what a default app means. Okay, that is a app level settings and a service provider access. One second. Yep. So next one is a tab settings. So tab settings, whenever we create a tab itself, you might have seen like where it's a default off, on, or hidden. These three options you will set for a different profile. Well, whenever you're creating a tab itself, you will see options for the list of profiles. What is the access on, off, or hidden? This might be already explained, but you can see all in one place. Actually, this profile, what is having access for all tabs. You can see all the tabs and what is the access that you're being given. And custom tab settings also there, record type settings. So we see already seen the record types, right? So here we can see for each object wise what are all the record types available and what is access we having and what are the default record types you can see in a profile. So if you create a record type and don't give access in the profile level, they cannot see that those record types. Once they're trying to create an, for example, what you did, you created an object called a course and you created two record types called the online and offline. And for example, you created a user and given one profile. For that profile, you give access to only one record type. Then what will happen? It will not ask the answer. So for one object, one record type will be a default for every profile. So, and you don't have any other choices. There is no point of showing you pick the record type. Whenever you click new, directly it will take you to the form where you have to fill with the default record type being assigned for your profile. There's an option called a default record type and a record type access. When you give a record type access, what will happen? You will see an option with one as being already checked. The already checked is nothing but a default record type for that. Here you can see non-scholar and scholar student, two record types, and non-scholar is a default record type. That's how it is. Next followed by the administrative permissions. These are like what we can do in Salesforce. For example, whether you can use a reports or not, whether you can have a chatter app or not. There are different features. So many things just you can explore on the whatever these formations when we are in that topics. Okay. And when you have like some special features like a password never expires. So if you check this box, the password will not expire for this profile users. And there are some the users like scheduling the reports. So we will explain like what is scheduling the reports, whether you can edit the reports or you can do your own posts or not, dashboards and templates. All of the features what you can avail in Salesforce, administrative permissions basically, whether you can do that feature or it has been disabled for your profile. Here where the administrative permissions will be controlled. Okay, and next to administrator general user permissions. So what you can do in a UI level, the activities that we can control over a user permission. And next to it, object level permissions. Whenever you create an object, you might have observed it, but this is like what you can do on that object. For example, you create an institute object. What you have thread permission, whether you can create a records on the institute object or not. Once you have a record, whether you can able to edit that object records or not. So this is a record level. If I say account here on account object, what you can do, whether you can read the records on account or not, whether you can create records on account or not, whether you can edit, whether you can delete or not. All the record level permissions, what you have on that object, that what this section of the profile will tell you. On a profile only, you will decide whether this profile users can access that object or not. So if you want only visible access, so this, you give only the read access, and what will happen? If any of this profile users logged in, they can only view this records. They cannot create, they cannot edit, they cannot delete. Just they can read it. If you give read and create, what will happen? They can create the users and they can see the records, but they cannot edit and they cannot delete. Similarly, applied for edit and delete. If you have an option, then only they will be able to do it. So what is the view all and modify all? So view all and modify all is it's like a administrative on this object. So this is we're going to discuss more in deeper on a data security. Okay. So for now, just remember there is a view all and modify all permissions on an object level, which will be controlled on a profile level. Okay. And moving on. Session settings and password policies. This is what actually I want to be here. To cover this only, I covered all this. For a user, is to create a user, you will be belong to one profile. So you have belonged to this profile. Okay. These are all what we can restrict the user. What is his session setting? So if you remember, Ammonia, like we were discussing about sometime in back yesterday or day before sessions. What is the session ID? The session ID basically once you log in, the session ID will be created. And it's having some validity and you can set that validity. How long you can have inactivity. Here I have a option to choose how long if I'm inactive, I want to expire my session. Here there are different options are available. If you have 24 hours of inactivity, then only if you want to expire the session, you can pick that. The minimum is a 15 minutes of inactivity. If you just do nothing and keep log in and wait, or like just you're doing nothing and doing something else, and that's called a inactivity, session inactivity. You're doing nothing, no changes you're doing in your Salesforce, just you log in and set idea, or like you're doing some other work, not touching any of the Salesforce things, then it will be considered as a inactivity. If you do not doing anything, that will be considered inactivity, and how long you do that, If you're doing that for 2 hours without doing anything, then session will automatically expire and it will expect, sorry, show this time you set. So after that much long time of inactivity, the system will automatically expire your session. And after the time, if you come and try to access any of the screens, it will say session expired, try to log in, and it will redirect you to a login screen. That is what this times out after what time of inactivity. Session security level required login. High accuracy or none. You can choose that. And password policies. After how many days you want to expire the password, so that it will ask user to reset their password, and how many passwords you want to remember, so that you cannot repeat those many passwords. For example, today I gave one password. So after these many days, it will expire and ask you to change the password. So when you change the password, you cannot use the same password that is being used for last 3 times. So you have to use a new password every time. Suppose you have changed the password for 4 times or 5 times. So it will remember only the last 3 passwords. So what is your first and second password? If you give again also, it will allow you to give. So that how many passwords you want to remember, you can choose that list. And how complex your password, how length your password should be, the minimum length of your password. You can give more than that, but what's the password that you want to give? What's the complexity of your password? Whether you want alpha, numeric, characters, special characters, small, caps, all you have this option. You can decide the complexity of your password, and you have when you're saying the security, like you have a question, right? When you're setting it before, what's the birth city, it asked. Similarly, if you're trying to give a question which is containing the answers, if you're trying to give, you want to avoid that, you can choose here cannot contain a password. Password question requirement. So when you give a custom question also you can give, and you're trying to keep answer also in the question to compromise on security. If you want to do that, you cannot do that. If you have option to restrict that kind of a questions. What's the invalid login attempts? Suppose you are the user and you forgot your password, or somebody else also knowing your username and they don't know the password, and keep on trying a different passwords. So it's a general case. What will do if you are trying with the incorrect password? So after 10 attempts, you want to log the user. Even though after 10 attempts you give a right password also, it will not allow you to log in. Similarly, like what's the number? Like after 3 unsuccessful, if you want to log the user, or 5, 10, or if you don't want to put any limit, you can apply the limit over here. And lockout effective period. So once it is being locked, what time? After what time we want to unlock the user, so that the user can again log in when trying logging in. So if you never want to, like once it's logged means administrator only has to unlock the user then they can log in, or like you can set some default time. After that time again you can try logging in. So you can set that, and I'm secure transfer for password usage, require a minimum 1 day password lifetime, and don't immediately expire links in a forgot passwords. So these are all the settings what you can control on a password level security. Okay, so I'll make everything controlled over here on a password level security. You can set whatever the complexity you want, how you compromise you can do on a password level security. Okay, done. I'm good with all settings of a session settings and a password policies. Now I have a few more things that I can control on a profiles. That is a login IP ranges. What is this login IP ranges? So if you remember, when I am logged in, I have see one login history. In the login history, you might have seen the IP address. So where I have this login history on my user, I have a login history, right? And you can see along with the IP address only, I have the user logins. So usually whenever you are trying to log in, your system will be having some IP address. So if you want to restrict based on IP address, if you give, okay, my users will belong to only this IP range. If anybody trying to log in outside of that range, I want to restrict login from outside my login IP range. So here we can define a range in which range my users can logging into the system. For example, I have something called if I give this, what will happen? It will allow only if I am between this login range. So how I can understand how I can see within the range or not. Normal numbers, right? Like how it start 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10, and after 9 we'll get 1, 0. Similarly, here also the IP ranges will be separated by the dots of 4 decimals. Like where you see a number between the dots will be considered as a one place of that IP consider. So it will be ranging from a 0 to 255. So how the IP will start is a all zeros, 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot 0, and next IP will be a 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot 1. So all zeros, like first three zeros followed by the 0 to 255. What is the IP you can give? Similarly, once 255 is done, next the second place will be replaced with the 1. 1, and the next phase will start like 0 to 255. Similarly, it will apply for all this four places of your IP. That's how we decide the range. Okay, hope you guys understand. And so we'll set a IP range. If any of the IP is not falling within this IP range, then these profile users cannot be logging into the Salesforce. Okay, that is what how you restrict from logging in from a within the range of IP ranges for the users on a profile level. So that is what the login IP range is. And okay, what else we can do? What else we can do is login hours. Um, there are some session settings. Session settings. One second. One second. Give me a second. The login hours also available on a profile level only. So before the login IP ranges itself, have a login hours. So what is the login hours? Basically, a company have a weekdays and weekends, right? So in which days they work, and in that day what is the working hours. So login hours basically in the Salesforce have an option to allow the users to log in only within that time. If you're trying to log in outside the time also, it will not allow you to log in. Basically, if you want to restrict the user to log in a within an IP range and within the time only, if you want to allow, you can define that in a Salesforce on a profile level. So Sunday, if you don't have any time, just not mention anything. And then here, if you select the working hours start from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for example, just you will mention that. So that if you're trying to logging in before 8 a.m., they will not be allowed. And Okay, they work till 4 and 5 also they work. By the time 5, 1 second. So what will happen is nothing will happen. They can continue working on the same session, but they cannot start a new sessions. When I'm saying new session, you cannot log in freshly to Salesforce after 5 p.m. But if you already logged in within the time, you can continue creating work. So you can continue working till the what time you want. But you cannot start a new session after the 5 p.m. Okay, that's what the login hours. So outside the login hours, you will be not able to log into a Salesforce. Okay, IP ranges outside the IP range, you cannot log into the Salesforce, which you will provide or control at a profile level. Okay, I think that's what actually I would like to cover on a user management password policy, login and freeze inactivate. Let me cover one more topic on a high level, or you can cover it. So on a profile, we have seen that we have all the administrative permissions, system permissions, user permissions, and like a page layout assignment, field level securities, and the default apps, default record types, page layout assignments, all being controlled on a profile level. Okay, there is a one more thing called a permission set. So permission set is almost similar to a profile, but where you cannot have this. If you say exact copy, what will not be there is a user have only one profile, so that we can decide what is the default app for that user, what is the default record type for that user, what is the page layout assignments for record. So it's based on a user we do assignment, but permission set is nothing but a this also set of permissions that we assign to a user. But if you take one user, you can assign only one profile. But a profile can be assigned to a multiple users. If you take a user, he have only one profile. If you take a profile, it can be assigned to any number of users. Okay. So if I want to give some additional permission to any of the users, what I can do is I can create a permission set and assign to this user. For example, I want to give access to the institute object to one user, but there is a profile. There are like 100 users in the profile. They are not having access to the institute, and I want out of 100 users, I want to give institute access to only 10 users. So what can I do? So I'm giving extra permissions. So what I can create a permission set, and in the permission set I will give allow access to the institute object and assign to the user. This 10 users we assign, so that these 10 users will get access to the institute object. That's how permission set works. But based on permission set, you cannot decide what's the default app. You can decide what apps you have permission, you can decide. But you cannot assign a default apps. You cannot assign a default record types. The default things you cannot do in a permission set, but you can give just an access, additional access on top of a profile that you can give on a permission set. So we have this permission set. Here also same thing will apply like a profile. Like if you have any standard, you cannot delete. If any custom permission set, then only you have option to delete it. Okay. So let's create a new permission set. Nothing to clone in the permission set. When we create a new permission set, it will be a blank thing. We have nothing, no access to it. So let's say institute access I would like to give, for example, and save it. So what I will do, I will go to object settings and I look for an institute. So in the object settings, what I will okay. So I want to look for institute. So in the institute, what I would like to control here, I'll just get it. And here I would like to give tab access is available, visible. I would like to give a all access on this object, and I would like to give return a read access. I'm going to give on a this profile and do a save. So that this profile is having, so this permission set is having access to this institute. And if you want to assign this permission set to a user to manage assignment and do the assignment to the user. So here I want to add assignment to this my team and assign so that this user being assigned with this permissions. That's how we deal with the permission sets. Okay, list of permission set and manage assignments. You can see users are being assigned. Okay, what are the permission sets you have? You can see all these permission sets over here. There are some standard permission sets and custom permission sets as well. On the institute access. Okay, so you can able to delete it. If any of the standard permission sets are there, you cannot delete them. But what are the custom permission sets? You can clone them or you can delete them. Or if you want, you can edit them after opening. Just whatever permissions you want, just open and edit and save it. That's it. Okay, that is all the permission sets. So that's all for today. So in the overall, what we have seen user management, profiles, permissions that we have seen, and we'll continue on Wednesday. We'll be sharing a task for you. But before closing, if you have any questions, please ask.